Yo. So I have a question for y'all. How much do y'all have sitting around waiting for you when it is time to go on? Like, do y'all have to do fish dinners? Do y'all have to do a GoFundMe if your loved ones pass away? Let's talk about it in a minute.
It's the Naybors Podcast with Reese and Mike. They discussing different issues that affect our streets and life. Said it's the Naybors. We the Naybors. Yeah.
You.
What's up? What's up? Top of the morning. Good morning. Good morning.
So, as you heard, talking about fish dinners and GoFundMes and things like that, because some of us are not really planning,
Right.
For our loved ones after we die.
Right.
I'm gonna give y'all the reason why I'm saying this to y'all. It is still the top of 2025, and I know, me personally, I know of about 10 people that have died this year alone. 5 of them were relatively close. 2 of them were family members.
Gotcha.
Right? And so, and one of them was the wife's grandma. And so, just to kind of give y'all an idea of relative and close proximity and how close people were, all that type of stuff. And so, so in all of these moments, you have various conversations of how people manage their money, how people prepared themselves for death, and what they had in place.
Right.
So I just want to know how many of y'all out there are even thinking about it.
That's a good question. I know I'm not, but yeah, I think I'm gonna sit in the cut for this one because you know better than I do. So
well, no, I mean, but here's the thing, though, Mike. I mean, so should you think about it a little bit more than what you are?
I don't know. You really think about it? I mean,
right?
I really don't know.
I mean, because because of the people that I know that have passed, they're all different ages and family sizes and things like that. So, so because I've been thinking about it more because of these situations,
right?
It's like, all right, so let's be honest, because of, and I'll use my wife's grandmother because it was a little closer.
Okay.
So I was a little more involved, right?
Okay.
Even though I did help out family members years and years and years ago, right?
Okay.
So I've been blessed not to have close family members pass away where I had to be totally involved.
Right.
So, but the thing is that, does anyone really know how much a funeral really is overall? And you don't know until you walk into that place.
Right.
Right. And so if you just use the funeral home expenses alone, just funeral home expenses, you're talking, and what I mean by that is the casket, that is them embalming, getting the body, all that type of stuff. That is still only $10,000. Like, that's $10,000, and that was with my grandmother-in-law being cremated.
$10,000. Wow.
$10,000, right? But we're only talking about funeral home expenses.
Right.
We haven't gotten to anything else. So imagine if she had to be buried in that casket. Imagine if she had to be put into a grave site.
Right.
Because those are other expenses that we didn't have to encounter.
Right.
And imagine if, she had a church funeral, right? Funeral in the church. But imagine if she was not a member. So now you got to pay for the rental of the building. You got to pay the rental of the minister. And you got to pay the rental for the, and it's not renting these people, but idea wise, but you got to pay
for their services.
Yeah, their services. Right. Thank you. I appreciate that, bro. Yeah. Good save. Yeah. And then you got to pay for the musician.
Right.
Right. And you haven't done a repast yet. So that means y'all haven't eaten.
Right.
And everybody wants to eat.
Right.
Right? Everybody wants to congregate and come together and fellowship and sing songs and dance and whatever the situation is, right?
Right.
So now you have food.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the wife and I really sat down and talked about it, you're talking about a good 17 to 20 grand.
Overall.
Overall.
Mm.
Now, I want to know how many of y'all has really paid attention to what that cost really is or what it means.
How about that? I know when my uncle passed away, my mom's last living brother, we had a service at a church in Glenside. But after that, the close family members, we just went out to eat.
I mean, and that was one of the thoughts that we had.
Right.
But the church provided some food and then the family donated food. So,
right.
So the money really didn't come out the pocket.
Right.
Per se.
It depends on a certain family situation.
Right.
Well, as you see, And yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't think about that.
Right. I mean, because so like when I had to remind the wife, I'm like, yo, like, when your dad passed, he had life insurance.
There you go. That word right there, life insurance. That's right there.
And so the money that was coming out of your pocket was nothing.
There you go.
In all honesty.
Basically, how many people have that?
But I'm gonna be honest with so I don't know how much y'all know about me, but I used to be a part of an organization called Primerica.
Okay.
So I used to sell life insurance.
Gotcha.
I was so I was a part of that organization. I learned a whole lot about business and life and whatever else. And
okay.
and I'm saying it because so y'all understand the challenge that I had.
Gotcha.
Of selling it or providing that service or whatever, however you would like to word it. I had a problem with it because one, people didn't believe in the organization.
Gotcha.
Right? Because it's the name brand or whatever else it might have been. I can't say that it was good, bad, or indifferent. Everybody has their opinion.
Okay.
Right? One. Number two, I would say that that was the first bill that everybody defaulted on.
Gotcha.
Everybody did not. So, so if I had an individual, and this is just my own experience, if I had an individual that had any financial challenges, the life insurance policy was the first thing that they would stop paying.
Gotcha.
Now, if my father-in-law, he had his insurance because he was military.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? And he worked for the government for umpteen years.
Gotcha.
So when he passed, his life insurance was a little different, right? Now, did he pay for more, or continue to pay for it after he retired and all that type of stuff? I think he did. I believe he did. I don't remember. He died quite a few years ago now, over 15 years ago now, so I don't remember all the details. But I just know that when we were doing the life insurance thing, yeah, that was the one thing that people stopped paying on.
Yeah.
And but it's like, hey, like, does your family really have the finances to cover that? Like $20,000 is a lot to come up with.
It is.
And so now, because of like when we were sitting down talking about it, I was like, now we can understand why there are some people they'll die in January and their funeral not until June.
Yeah, I see that. Right.
It just feels like it's a long, long time for people to have a funeral.
Yeah.
Because they got to raise the funds.
Got to raise the funds. Correct. Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's not just about raising funds, but it's also availability of everybody else.
Correct.
Just because you got the money today doesn't mean that the church is available.
Exactly.
You get what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think those are the things that, we as a community need to concern ourselves with. I don't care what color you look. No ethnic group, no race, no nothing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's across the board.
It's across the board. Correct.
And it's not just for the adults, too. Like, you kind of need to think about it for your kids as well.
These days, yeah. That's the scary part.
Right.
That's that's the scary part. Because, like, as you see, a lot of them not going to make it at our age.
And it's Because there's no value in life.
Nah, they think it's a video game.
Right.
But once you get caught,
yeah,
all of a sudden, you got allergies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, now, they charging 14, 15-year-olds as adults now.
Oh, yeah.
Them days is over.
Right.
They smack on the wrist. Nah, Johnny, don't do that no more. Don't do that no more. Nah, you going to start with the big dogs.
Yep.
So,
your
choice.
Yeah. Definitely.
I ain't trying to change the subject, but this is part of, life insurance.
I know it's part of it, right.
You have to, it's just like, once again, if you don't want the cops, check your kids, check your own kids.
Well, I mean, but this is what, like you're saying. So if you take a look at what's happening, once they tell you don't run,
right?
Don't reach in your waistband, right?
Right.
Don't do, and you're, people are making up in their mind that either one, I ain't no punk,
right,
and you ain't gonna tell me what to do, or my fear kicks in, and fear is now driving me, right, to run. To want to fight or flight mentality, whatever. Now, to your point, unfortunately, it looks like police brutality,
right,
or excessiveness or whatever. Now, we can't say that it's not. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's not.
Right.
I'm not saying, because it's also the flip.
Exactly.
It's a flip as well.
Right.
So it's going to be fight or flight.
Right.
So, because all of us are human.
Right.
No excuses, but all of us are, right? And so even in that, are people respecting that you only got one life to live?
Exactly. Because there's no such thing. Once you're going, you can't hit the reset button.
Right.
Yep. Only reset button you can hit is, I need to change my lifestyle. I need to change certain things. That's the only reset you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But when you 6 feet under, or in the morgue, whatever,
ain't
no such thing as hitting the reset button.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think that's the part, like, great point of, is life really a video game? Are we really in the Matrix?
How about that? Yep.
Because if people keep treating it that way,
what you think is going to happen?
Right. And how do you expect for other people to respect you and your family if you live life that way?
If you live like that, right.
Like we have a neighbor, right? We Mike and I share a neighbor, and her daughter calls me Uncle Reese. Her daughter calls me Uncle Reese. Because I make sure that she's okay. I ask her how she's feeling. You get what I mean? Once or twice where she might have been locked out. I sat outside with her. I didn't ask her to come in my house because I didn't want no crazy,
right?
Understood.
Understood.
So we sat outside or whatever until her mom got home or whatever the situation might have been. Even though I do have a son and daughter, but I ain't need no nonsense.
No nonsense. Exactly.
You get what I mean?
Right.
So again, respecting other situations, right? And so, but because of that, I respect them or whatever else. I'm called Uncle Reese.
Right.
And so, she goes away. She knows that, hey, she has a neighbor that's going to look after her stuff. She has more than one.
Right.
But I'm literally like closer.
Right, close to it. Right. Understood. Yeah.
And so, so that's some of that's just by default. But how many of us have that community?
Right.
You get what I mean? Where, our neighbor, I really feel bad that their pet died. Right. And so do I see a change in their behavior? Yeah, because I don't see them all the time anymore.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Especially when you see individuals around the same time walking their dog.
Right.
Like they're walking their pet.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
Same time. So, yeah, it's like they're going through mourning.
Right.
Right. And it's something that, some people, it's just a pet, you can always get another one. Yeah, you can do that. But when you got that bondage with your pet, it's like a family member.
Right.
It's totally different story. Totally different aspect. So,
and even with that, like when he was telling me about his pet, I'm going to hop back to the financial piece real quick. when he was telling me about all the stuff that his pet needed to go through and the surgeries and it, like, dude, like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That was a lot of money. I mean, because he still was talking about anywhere between $7 and $10,000, like overall. And on top of that, his pet was not going to be 100% even after that.
No, exactly.
So would it have been worth it? Now, some people are dedicated that much.
Some people are dedicated. I mean? Right. They still do it.
Right.
They still do it, but it's crazy. That's like life insurance. You got to get pet insurance now.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
My daughter, she want to be a veterinarian.
Right. Right.
Man. So it's everything dealing with finance, especially death, whatever, regardless. It's you got to plan. Get that life insurance, and sometimes you might have to start off $5,000. $1,500, $5,000, whatever the situation may be. You might have to sit down, okay, can we get a family plan?
I mean, but I think also that you need to probably, because the wife and I, like I said, we talked about it. We're like, yo, can y'all write it out first? Write out what you want.
Right.
Right? And then realize what's that cost?
Right.
Do the research. You get what I mean? Because do I want the whole kit and caboodle? Like, do I want the church and do I want the doves and do I want, whatever it is, a special song being played? Do I want someone to sing a solo, a tribute to me? Like, all this grandiose type stuff.
Right.
How much is that stuff going to really cost? And that's the part that I think, again, what people don't realize. That's a whole lot of money.
Right. Man, please.
And even just from an organization perspective, for those of our loved ones, because I had a family member who retired from the military twice and worked for the police department. So just from an organization perspective, you had to call all them departments and had a gun salute from each one of those. So a lot of that is planning as well.
Correct. Wow, how about that?
You get what I mean? Yep. So there's a whole lot to it when it comes to planning a funeral.
Right.
Because there's some things that you just don't think about.
Right.
It really isn't. And I think that, it's a conversation that needs to be had across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board.
I think which a lot of people don't do.
No, like my mom, like the last time I spoke to my mom about it seriously, or at least what she worded, what she wanted, was when I was a kid-ish. I might have been early 20s. And she said, no, you know what? I just want y'all to have a party. Well, Mom, that don't tell me what to do with your body.
Exactly.
You get what I mean? Like, that's numero uno.
I mean, we gonna have a party, but I ain't gonna sit up there have a party with a dead body sitting right there. Jeez,
right. And I'm not in those places. Like, yo, I don't know if it was Instagram or TikTok, but I saw this funeral where the gentleman, they had him standing up as if, and had a party as if like he was there. I don't want that.
This ain't coming to America too. Forget that.
Right,
Jack.
right.
No.
Like, first of all, do y'all even realize how hard it was for me to even want to attend a funeral?
Exactly.
I ain't want to go to no funerals.
Them things give me the creeps. I'm sorry.
You get what I mean? Like, and it wasn't until recently where you start hearing more and more people being cremated.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean? So I can kind of deal with that a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like even for like when my father-in-law passed, like I said, it was 15 years ago. So the kids were still in single digit age-wise, right?
Uh-huh.
And so really, do you want your young child who's just with their grandparent, like they were just with him?
Got you.
And do you want your 6 and your 8-year-old to have the last memory of them laying in a casket?
How about that?
Do you really want that? That's really kind of hard. So when my father-in-law passed, the immediate thought was cremation.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean? So we never saw him. Well, I never saw him when he died.
Gotcha.
We were at the hospital with him. We took him in on a Friday. He died that Monday.
Gotcha.
We were there with him that Monday morning as he was transitioning.
Gotcha.
Right? And so you can kind of see that,
right.
Whatever. And we leave, like almost as soon as we get home, my wife gets a phone call that he died. And she has to turn around, come back.
Right.
And so she saw him while he was in that, state.
That state of mind, right.
But I never did. My kids never did. And so, because the next time, quote unquote, I saw him was in the box with his cremations, right? So my last memory of him is him walking and talking, or not. He wasn't walking, but him talking to me, or like I said, as he was transitioning, him just looking like he was kind of asleep and all that type of stuff. You get what I mean?
Right.
But he was still breathing, and he still had a moment where he kind of still, right before he left, he kind of had come to, and he hugged both his daughters.
Gotcha.
He hugged my wife and her sister. He hugged them, and then he kind of slipped right back into it while he's hugging them.
Gotcha.
You get what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So again, probably the most endearing, most sensitive moment I've ever probably seen in my life. I probably will ever see in my life. Right. At least personally. You get what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But it's moments like that where you're like, if I could do whatever I can to make sure that my loved one, I take care of them.
Right.
You get what I mean? When they're dead.
When they did, right.
So I'm gonna do everything I can. So I understand the fish dinner, GoFundMe, all that type of stuff. Like you want to raise the funds, but I think that has to be a family conversation.
Which that's the problem right there. Which certain families not together like that.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
And when that person passed away, the only thing all they said, "Oh, what can I get?" That it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's a lot of people like that.
It's
You're right.
Yo, can I get the car? Who gonna get the house?
Yeah.
That's all they worrying about.
Yep.
And
they are.
It's that unity is not there anymore. Like that.
Right.
Right. It used to be a strong bondage, but now it's like
and as I was telling Mike, I had just gone to the bank. I was doing some banking stuff or whatever else. And here's what I found out. This is by accident. I didn't even know. And before we, sign off, but this is something that everyone needs to understand. That if your name is not on somebody's account, you can't do anything.
You can't do nothing.
You can't do any transactions. Per what I read. Now I could have misread it or whatever else, but I know definitely you couldn't even make a deposit to someone's account if your name wasn't on the account. You have to verify who you are across the board.
Yep.
Now, I remember at one time, I could make a deposit for my mom or my grandma or whatever else because I'm just doing deposit. I'm not doing a withdrawal.
Nope.
I ain't taking no money out. I'm putting money in.
No matter.
But now I gotta. My name has to be on the account in order for me to do anything.
Right.
That's craziness. And so I'm saying that because now that means if someone dies and the money is sitting there, right? What do? You
gotta get. That's when you gotta get the legal lawyers involved.
Right.
And that's gonna cost you.
Right. Especially if I'm just putting money in.
Right.
Like I'm not even asking to take the money out necessarily, but I'm just saying like if there's anything that needs to happen, because can I turning over to the funeral home so they can take the money out, like whatever, all these other situations, like you said. Now all of a sudden I have to have true legal representation.
Yep.
Across the board. I just need to have a lawyer on standby.
Right.
Just for that.
Right.
So yeah, y'all. I mean, I know we said a whole lot. But I just want to know how many of y'all are prepared for that.
Right.
It's not easy.
It's totally not.
It's not easy. It's not simple. And I have learned a lot. There's some things I did forget about. You get what I mean? Because, you're blessed when your family members aren't dying, right?
Right.
Especially people that are that close.
Right.
But then you start having people back to back to back and people being sick and all that type of stuff. Like, now you got to think about it, like, oh, snap.
Right. It's a big eye opener.
Right. Right. So y'all, let us know what y'all thoughts are, how you prepare, how you didn't prepare, and where you think that you need to be in the next 5 minutes.
Exactly. How about that?
Because you never know.
You never know. Never know.
So we thank y'all very much for listening.
Peace.
Thanks for hanging out with us on the Naybors Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and felt right at home. If you like what you heard, don't be a stranger. Subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with your friends and fam. Got something on your mind or a topic you'd love to hear us talk about? Hit us up. Until next time, remember, we're all just neighbors working together for a better community. Stay safe, stay connected, and we'll catch you in the next one.